Hey Cam followers, episode 13. This is a game changer. This is really important for all the people that are watching this episode and are beginning to switch off because I haven't given you the golden nugget. I haven't given you the answer to everything. I haven't given you the holy grail that will fix your dog in 3 days. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. This is really important because this is going to be what protects you from poorly marketed products that claim the earth and deliver nothing. This is for you to spend your precious finances appropriately. This is for you to make sure your interventions, your time and your energy is used to best effect. So please listen because this is really, really important. We need to know whether the intervention that we have chosen for your dog and their condition is working. And how do we do this? We do it by looking at objective measures. A very simple one that I use a lot, and I believe that it's your favourite one as well, is something called client-specific outcome measures. So that means that the client, you've chosen things that you can see and that you can potentially quantify and monitor. So let me just run through what mine were for Holly, and then I'm going to leave Gwen to talk about how it works. So Holly actually walked in for her PTS. She could still move. She wasn't collapsed. She wasn't off her back legs. But life had got that bad for her that she was very, very unhappy. So some of the markers that I use were emotion based. So for her, she used to use her eyes and her ears quite a lot. On a bad day, her ears would be back a lot. They wouldn't come forward. She wouldn't go into happy Holly. Because she had neck pain, she would turn with the whites of her eyes. So she couldn't turn her neck, so she'd turn through her eyes to see around her. So if I saw a lot of the whites of her eyes and her ears were back, and her back was arched, so she had lumbosacral disease. So days where it was really bad, her back would be arched, and her tail would be vertical, and it'd be almost limp. And when she was walking on a bad day, her back legs would whisk rather than stride. And I could look at that, and I could see whether that hadn't changed from the day before and we were still stuck in a bad time, or whether something that I'd allowed her to do at the weekend had ended up with us in a bad state. It meant that I could modify my exercise. So if she was having a bad day, we reined it in and we did more things at home. I maybe upped her pain meds. But by me using my objective observational markers, I felt that I could monitor her pain state better and I could adjust as I needed to adjust. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so it can be all sorts of things you can be observing. So the key is in the title, client-specific outcome measures. So these are outcome measures, which means that we're measuring something, we're measuring an outcome according to a behaviour in the case of a dog, because they can't they can't self-report pain, and they are specific to you, the client. So you choose a series of behaviours that you think you can measure. So that might be
greeting you at the front door.
Greeting you at the front door when you come in from your day of work.
Yeah.
So you've got a specific time of day, you've got a specific activity in a particular part of the house, so, and it's going to be the same place and time every day.
Yeah.
And you're going to score each day whether it was better or worse than this sort of the start point.
Yeah.
And you might choose climbing the stairs. So generally we tend to suggest if you've got stairs in your house and you've got an old arthritic dog that you might limit stair climbing, but if they sleep in your bedroom then they need to come upstairs once a day and they need to go downstairs once a day.
Yeah.
So you could score their ability to manage the stairs on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, because sometimes a daily is a bit too much.
Yeah.
You could...
What I think Gwen means from that is that I can totally relate that when you start objectively monitoring, it can almost get a bit intoxicating because you focus in too hard. So keep your grips about it, because arthritis and its clinical signs does do this naturally anyway. So you will have flow. But if Holly was here and it was 2 days, 3 days, then this is a problem. Having this is acceptable. That's part of the nature of the disease. So as you say, potentially spacing your assessments is quite important too.
Yeah. So noticing change over time.
Yeah.
can be tricky if you're doing it every day. Well, sometimes you do need to do it every day because it's that variable, but most of the time you've been given a pain management strategy to work with, and reacting to quick changes is not always helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's quite hard as well when an owner comes in with a dog in pain, they've identified it, and the vet's saying, I'd like you to go away on this non-steroidal for potentially 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It can be very frustrating because you're like, oh, that's a long period of time, I want to see change immediately. But so with the client-specific outcome measures, the other thing that I found really useful with it is that it meant that I could teach the owner why those changes had taken place. So when I was doing my home visits, I would use them because it would open the door to explain why the dog was hesitating to get on the sofa, why the dog struggled to get up from a lay to a stand or groaned as it lay down. And it meant that I could actually teach them a bit more about the physiology of the disease. So that meant that it opened the door for the interventions, the rebuild, the integrative therapies. So I found that very useful. There's been work that shows that it is reliable, hasn't it, in cats though?
Yeah, there has also been some more recent work which has shown that it is still heavily affected by what we call the placebo effect.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not. So we talk about objective measures because we're trying to measure something which is really subjective. Pain is really subjective. You can't put a number on it. So we try our best to find things that we can notice a change in, and then put a number to it. So today is a good day. She scores 5, or maybe the other end of the scale.
Yeah.
And then another day they might score only 3.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a false thing in a way, but it's the best. In some ways, it's the best we can do with something that you can't really truly measure.
Yeah.
But it's just like a lot of other things. It's based on our observation, so it is affected by
our judgment
and our belief that the dog should be feeling better because it's on this new anti-inflammatory. So it's not perfect.
No.
But then there are no perfect pain scores.
No, and I think that's a perfect tangent for us. Let's talk about caregiver placebo, because I never realised how big a problem this was until I started delving into it a bit more. And I can remember I went to the European Veterinary Orthopaedic Convention, I think EASVOT, and there was a guy presenting his work, and it was a placebo arm of a drug trial. So they had a number of dogs that were on a double-blinded placebo-controlled trial, and 57% of owners saw improvement on placebo, which is huge. 57% of the owners saw improvement when force plate analysis, which is very objective, of the physical state of pain had no change. But what was worse was the vets that were also blinded to the trial, who were relying on the owner information and their visual of the dog. 44% of them saw improvement. So caregiver placebo is such a problem.
Yeah, I have a lot of people say to me, how can you get a placebo effect in a dog? Because everyone thinks the placebo effect is thinking, this pill that I'm taking is going to make me better.
Yeah.
And a dog can't think that. But we know in human fields, you get caregiver placebo. So the parents of a child believing their child's going to be improved on a medication. And it's measurable. So it's exactly the same with, if you think, the parents of the dog, the caregiver. But not only that, by proxy, also the vet or the doctor is influenced heavily by
what the owner thinks.
The caregiver is saying.
Yeah.
So you get a double, the placebo effect stacks on top, which is, and it's measurable. It's potentially beneficial in its own right. But if you can't measure that, then any clinical trial on a medication or a supplement even is a bit meaningless, because if you put all dogs onto this new treatment and sort of 80% of them seem to improve, well, 57% of them might just have improved just because they're being given a nice new pill.
Exactly. And what's quite interesting about, as I said, caregiver placebo, there is definitely 2 categories. There's the caregiver placebo effect, where there has been no change in the animal. So the animal is effectively suffering. The owner is doing an intervention. It might be something they've purchased, it might be something they've gone to their vet for, it might be something that they've been approaching a therapist for. They're spending money, time and energy, and the dog's world has not changed, but the owner believes it has. So that's really sad. And I can't think of anything worse with the dog going, I don't want to be doing this. My world's not changing, but I'm glad you're happy about it. The other side of the coin is caregiver placebo, where because the owner sees improvement, they offer further interventions to that dog. And it might be stroking, petting, a slightly different walk, a new bed, a new bone, because there's hope. So that owner has thought, oh my God, we're on the decline. They then get an element of hope themselves. Their behaviour changes, their interaction with the dog changes. And through subtle lifestyle changes, the dog does improve. And that can be both emotionally and physically. So you could have a dog that is just chirpier because the owner's giving them more time and attention because there's hope. It's very complicated. And to complicate it just a little bit more, we're going to add regression to the mean into this. So regression to the mean is just the natural waxing and waning nature of the disease. You have good days and you have bad days, and you have good days and you have bad days. But there is this mean, there's this middle ground where they keep going through as they fluctuate from good to bad. There is that central zone. Now what happens if you started a supplement as you're at a bad point, which is common because people will go onto their iPad late at night because they're desperate, because their dog has not moved for 3 days, they don't know what else to do, and they purchase something and they start giving it, but that dog was improving anyway. So the coincidence of that intervention with regression to the mean, but that intervention is given the thumbs up as that was what caused it.
And you're talking on the individual animal basis, but the technical term regression to the mean, which is sounds very technical, is used when you're talking about a research study. So if you start a research study, a common thing to do is to send out a recruitment drive to vets to say, if you've got animals with arthritis, send them to me and we'll enroll them on our study of this lovely new supplement. And so every dog that then comes into your study comes in at a bad point.
Yes.
Because they've been referred to your study because they've gone to their vet in a crisis.
Yeah.
And so if you start them on that study straight away, actually they're probably going to get a bit better anyway because of the natural waxing and waning of the disease.
Yeah.
And so if that happens with all the dogs on your study, it completely biases the results.
Yeah.
So that's an argument if you're talking about clinical studies, we're going a bit off piece here, that you need to do what's called baselining, where you give the animal a period before it actually then starts on the treatment.
And crossover as well.
Yeah, and trying it on and off treatment. So we could do a whole episode just
to be
about
honest, we
studies.
should do a whole episode, and I will be out of my depth there, and I'll let you take the lead on that, because what is important to me and what CAM is about is helping you guys make the right decisions. None of us have a money tree. Everybody has a definitive amount of time and energy and resources. We all have a definitive amount of resources. And CAM is there to make sure that you use yours to best effect. And I've seen many, many cases where people have gone down the road of well-marketed interventions and products, but the dog's life hasn't really changed very much. And then they run out of resources to reinvest. So going back to the original part of this episode, the original point is to help you be confident to make decisions to best effect, because no one else can do it for you. We can guide you and we can give you tools to help you. We have clinical metrology instruments that are used in many practices in the UK, such as the Liverpool Osteoarthritis in Dogs study, which is a questionnaire, the Canine Brief Pain Inventory, the Helsinki Chronic Pain Scoring. We've got COAST, and we've got a new one out by Professor Jackie Reed's team called Vetmetrica. There are tools that many practices are now using to try and quantify so that you can measure and therefore you can make objective decisions. But a lot of people don't have access to that, and they might not work in every case. So this is quite a fundamental, it's quite a primitive but safe.
One thing that's worth mentioning just before we finish up is something that's really, really simple.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to use it in a clinical study where you're trying to get really objective data, but the good day, bad day diary is so simple.
It's so simple.
Do you want to describe it? Because it was kind of your idea.
people have different abilities to be objective, and my client base can go from people that are very busy people, they have very little time and they can only but tick a box, through to people that have more time and have that inquiring brain that they will answer a questionnaire with 25 questions on a regular basis. So we came up with a tool that we felt could help different wishes, and it's in the OA booklet, which is in the CAM shop. It is a simple old-fashioned calendar with 1 to 30 in boxes, and it means that that owner can say, at the end of the day, I've had a good day. He's been energetic, he's greeted me, he's eaten his dinner, he's socialised with the family. It's a good day, it's a good day. If you want to, you can divide that day into morning and afternoon. So if you want to make it more technical, you can make each box half. But over time, you can just be looking at trends, and that's really important. So if you went to your vet and they started you on an anti-inflammatory and your trend did not change, that dog continued to have bad day, bad day, bad day, bad day, we know that a non-steroidal intervention should be reasonably quick acting, and we would know that something's amiss. We should look at this again. Let's revisit this problem and see what we need to change.
And it's just really visual, isn't it? Actually having ticks or smiley faces and sad faces
Yeah.
in your diary across a whole month.
Yeah.
I think it's something I use quite a lot when people are trying to decide.
Yeah.
They know that the end is coming,
Yeah.
the sort of dreaded day where they're going to have to make a decision to
Yeah.
bring things to a close for their dog. And they find it really hard because they see their dog when they're having a good day.
Yes.
And that completely changes their
Oh.
mind. But if you can track that over the course of a month or two, it really helps you to be objective about how many bad days versus how many good days is he
And
having.
that's such a big point, because I can remember very clearly that in my final couple of weeks for Holly, there was the one good day that stood out, and it wiped the 5 bad days that I'd had. And that one day made me go through another 5, 10, 15 bad days because I latched onto that one. Yeah, so it's very difficult. There is no answer. There is no definitive. There is no, this is the game plan that's going to suit everybody in the world and their dog. But what these episodes are hoping to do is to give you a better chance of understanding this disease, to make better decisions. Because there are many, many ways that you can intervene. Some of them have less evidence, some have no evidence. We want you to be safe and make good decisions. We're going to be back for episode 14, where we're going to now show you a structure about how it all fits together, so that you can have something in your head that at the end of each day you can go, I'm done, I'm okay. There isn't more that I can give. Because we know from our Holly's Army followers, there's a massive tendency in moments of loneliness and vulnerability, when you really want to do something more, you'll get out your iPad or you'll get out your iPhone and you'll search and you'll type in a few keywords and you'll find something. And quite often those somethings don't have any promises of working. So next episode, we're going to look at the bigger structure. So we'll see you then. Bye.